TFA Fam, what is going on? Appreciate all of you joining us. We have the first mock draft of the season under our belts. Tonight, we're going to be breaking it down. We got the three amigos rocking with y'all. Myself, Cody Kutzer. Find me at CKutzerFF. Child, please, Kevin Steele at FantasyWrath13. And bringing on Mr. Marriage, Mr. Hawaii, Mr. Big Island, Robby Jeffries at NFL Robby. First of all, big shout out to all the non-TFA staff who joined us to rock this draft out. Much better experience than trying to just look at current ADP and talk to you guys about it that way. So, with that out of the way, let's just jump right into this puppy and start looking at some of these picks. We're going to go through the first 4 rounds to give those of you who are listening via podcast an idea of how all this went down. And this is actually the perfect time for you to head over to our YouTube channel to check this out so you can see all the picks. I have the draft board pulled up here, but this is how the first round went down. 101 was Christian McCaffrey, followed up by Dalvin Cook, Saquon Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, Alvin Kamara, Derrick Henry. Kev took Aaron Jones. Robby took Ezekiel Elliott. Tyreek Hill, I took A.J. Brown at 110. And then Akers and Travis Kelce.
For the folks at home that are watching or listening to this, this was a full PPR, right?
Correct.
Okay, just so people know, what the settings were for this glorious mock draft that we did.
Good call. No bells and whistles on this one. Just a standard 12-team PPR. We took out kickers, took out defense because who needs them? Who needs them? So you're just getting pure, unadulterated offensive goodness. Like I said, nothing really stands out to me. Akers going at 111, maybe slightly early, but I don't think that's necessarily hot by any means. With Citrus Soccer Boy getting his guy there at 111. Since this is pretty straightforward, obviously running backs dominating the first round with 9 out of the 12 picks, other than Tyreek, A.J. Brown, and Travis Kelce. Kev, Robby, why don't you guys talk about your picks here in the first round? Kev, you had 107, went Aaron Jones, and Robby 108, and you went Zeke Elliott, being the homer that you are. But were there any other guys you were thinking about? Did you have a strategy in mind going into this? Just your general thoughts here with your first pick.
For me, it was pretty straightforward. When Aaron Jones was on the board, I knew there was no way that I was going to pass up on him. He's somebody we talked about last week in the rankings video. We did the running back rankings video, so you can go back and watch that if you missed that. But Aaron Jones, he's been top 5 each of the last 2 seasons in fantasy points per game. He's one of the most efficient running backs in the league. Obviously, right now, I am operating with the thought that Aaron Rodgers is still going to be a member of the Green Bay Packers come the season. If he is not, then obviously this would change where I would have taken Aaron Jones. But getting him here, I still felt like that was really good value for him. I don't mind Zeke, but I felt like with this situation that I felt like I really wanted to still grab one of these top running backs. And with Aaron Jones still being on the board, I have him, as a top 5 running back for the season. So there was no way I was going to pass on him at 107. I felt like that was decent value for me to get him here.
Robby, your thoughts on Zeke?
Yeah, I picked the 108 position because I was looking at ADP, and honestly, when you look at these top 8 running backs that went, I kind of just wanted the last of them to fall. I kind of view, obviously, McCaffrey can separate himself a little bit, and Barkley and maybe Cook and JT at the top. But honestly, if you look at these top 8 guys, I think they're all in an upper tier before you have a little bit of a drop off there. And so I was looking at Aaron Jones. Kev swept him right in front of me. So, Zeke going at 108, I think a lot of people are maybe a little bit down on him from his last year. Guys, I've talked to you guys a ton about this, but, a lot of offensive injuries, a down year for him, but I think he's going to come raging back. He normally averages a touchdown every 20 to 25 touches. And this past year, it was 40 touches for every touchdown. So if that offense does come back to where it was with Dak at the helm, I think Zeke is going to be a top 3 running back. So I'm pretty stoked to get him at 108.
You don't feel like at all that with Tony Pollard and the way how well he played last year, and with the touches that Ezekiel Elliott's had over his career, injury, finally happening to him last year, that maybe they take away, because I feel like they're going to take away touches this year. They don't need to sit here and let him handle 25 touches per game. Now, in this offense, with the explosive it's going to be, he's going to get opportunities to score touchdowns, and that he can make up for some of that. But I don't think he's going to get the same volume that we're accustomed to seeing with Tony Pollard, demonstrating that what he's able to do when he gets the ball in his hands.
I think you're not wrong. Pollard will have a role, and he had a role last year, and Zeke was still up there at 18.5 touches per game. And then that was in a year where he had hamstring injuries. He had an ankle injury. He actually sat out a game to have Pollard start that one game where he did pretty well. So, I mean, yeah, he definitely will have a role, but that doesn't mean Zeke Elliott doesn't get 250 carries, another 50, 60 targets. And now if he increases from those 6 rushing touchdowns that he has and he gets up to the 8 or 9 range, I mean, he was a running back 13 or 12. I can't remember exactly. He was a running back 12 or 13 with missing a game in a down year. Now let's just get him a full year, get him healthy again, get a normal offense around him. And I think he's just locked to be a top 5 running back, even with Pollard in the mix. I honestly think Pollard being in there and kind of spelling him actually helps him, keeps him a little bit more healthy this year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate where you got him. I think 108. I mean, he's a guy that, the last couple of years has been a top 3 running back. So getting him at 108 is not bad, because I feel like once you got past him, the rest of the guys are all guys that I think you could have some sort of question mark around them. Yep. Where Zeke is still the lead back there. You're not really worried about that, but I think there's some question marks with some of these other guys that are going higher than what we typically see. But I love seeing the AJ Brown for the brand, in the first round by Cody. I think for some people, they're maybe a little surprised that Davante Adams was not the first wide receiver off the board. I don't mind that Tyreek Hill went first overall. That's at least as the first wide receiver off the board. But AJ Brown, we talked about last week on the wide receiver video, that I feel like that he is locked and loaded to be a lock to be a top 5 wide receiver, and really wouldn't surprise me one bit if he's the number 1 overall wide receiver this year.
Yeah, listening to your guys' wide receiver show, you guys definitely hit on him, and I think you guys did a good job, because not only has he been super efficient with the decent target size that he's gotten, right? He's been okay, but we have seen them split with Corey Davis a little bit. They've had Jonnu in the mix, and now you guys obviously made the point on the show that it's kind of his show, and so we should all expect those targets to jump into the triple digits, and a healthy triple digits, right? Like we're talking 130 plus, and with his efficiency and chemistry with Ryan Tannehill, I just think it's really wheels up, and wide receiver 1 is absolutely in the cards for him.
Yeah, last year I think he got to like 104, so he barely got into that triple digits, and with all the other offensive pieces they're missing, like you're saying, Robby, I think he's a lock for 130, 40, 150. And I think if you look at some of the other receivers who are going after him, that like Davante Adams, even if Aaron Rodgers plays, he's going to be at least touchdown regression at the very least. Stephon Diggs, if Josh Allen takes a step back and kind of comes back down to earth as far as his completion percentage and all that goes, I think AJ Brown is someone who's just primed to blow up. So kind of took him there at 110. The only other player I was really considering would have been Nick Chubb, but I kind of wanted to see how things would shake out if I skipped the first round running back. So jumping into the second round, kicking it off, obviously at 201, it went to Davante Adams, Austin Eckler, and then I had the chance to take Chubb again here, but I was just like, I know it's going to get gross, but I want to see how gross it gets if I skip running back in the second round. So I went and took Stephon Diggs at 203, Metcalf at 204, Robby, you got Chubb at 205, Cav, you went Mixon at 206, and then Kittle was the second tight end taken at 207, Swift, Gibson, Darren Waller, DeAndre Hopkins, and then Justin Jefferson to run at the second round. Like I said, just going to my pick real quick at 203. Only other one would have been Chubb, but I just kind of wanted to play around with team build a little bit to see how it shook out. So that's why I took Diggs, and he's another guy who I feel like is a lock for at least top 5, top 6. Unless Josh Allen just falls completely flat on his face. But I think his targets are obviously safe. I don't see them going out and putting a big emphasis on the run game. So I think they're going to be just as pass heavy as they were this year. Chubb at 205 and then Mixon at 206. Were there any other players in the mix for you guys, or were you just hammering running backs early because you both went running back with your first 3 picks?
Yeah, for me, I normally spread my team around. I know a lot of people build on that running back, robust running back strategy, and I tend to kind of go one running back, one wide receiver most of the time, and not intentionally, just how it seems to fall most of the time. And if Metcalf had fallen to me, I might have done that, but I think Chubb was just too good to pass up here. Talk about a guy that probably should have been in the first round, or all these guys you can make an argument for, but maybe if we look on at this in December, it could be what the hell, why wasn't Chubb, a top 6 pick? I can definitely see that. So yeah, he was the pick there. He absolutely had a dominant season, even with his injury. And so I'm ready for this tandem of Zeke and Chubb to just kind of set this team up really well for the rest of the draft.
Kev, anybody else you were thinking about whenever you went mixing?
No, I felt pretty good. I knew I wanted to get running back early, especially picking in the middle here at 107 at the 7th spot. I felt pretty good about being able to stack running backs, and we know how deep the wide receiver position is. And no, I wasn't really panicking about not getting any of these top end wide receivers. So when Joe Mixon was on the board again, guy has as a top 10 running back this year. I think that, getting him another guy that's going to handle probably 18 to 20 touches per game. He's going to be, the main pass catcher in the backfield as well. So in an offense, that should be much better. We just had yesterday or the day before, Adam Schefter tweeted out that Joe Burrow is on track and ready to roll week 1. So that is also really good news for this Cincinnati offense. So getting Joe Mixon in the second round, I really like that value for him. I know there's going to be people that are down on him. People are going to want to pass on him. So I am all about that life. If people want to pass on Joe Mixon, I think that's a mistake. He was a solid running back in the little bit of time that he played last year. And people are too quick to judge everything from what just happened last year and not really try to look forward. So I like Joe Mixon a lot, being able to get him here. I agree that Nick Chubb should not be falling out of the first round. Nick Chubb should be a first round running back. And if that's how things are going to go, because I think people are still a little nervous with Kareem Hunt still being there. I don't really care about Kareem Hunt even wasn't when Kareem Hunt got to start last year. Kareem Hunt wasn't great. He was okay. But Nick Chubb was head and shoulders better than he was last year. And we started to see Nick Chubb get a little bit more opportunity as well as the season went on in the passing game. Chubb was just fantastic last year, coming off an injury, and he still produced. He was 7th in fantasy points per game. I think he was number 1 or number 2 in yards created last year, yards created per touch. So the dude is an absolute monster. And I think this could be his big monster year. And so, yes, I think he's definitely a guy that we look back on and people are going to wish they would have taken him a little bit sooner, but the people that took him in the second round are going to get nice value there.
Yeah. Hey, I think the Austin Eckler pick is one that's intriguing to me. That would be the 14th overall pick with Nick Chubb still on the board, Joe Mixon. I'm a guy that loves Eckler. I love Austin Eckler, but I just think maybe that's an interesting pick for that spot. So if you're asking if one stands out to me, I think that one, and then going over to Darren Waller. I'm never the guy that normally targets tight end early. Darren Waller in the second is also kind of intriguing.
I have zero issue with taking Travis Kelce or Darren Waller in the first 2 rounds of any draft. They're going to get such a large target share, like we saw last year with Darren Waller with 140 targets. Nothing's changed in Oakland or in Las Vegas. He is still going to be the focal point of that offense. He is going to be fed as many targets as he can handle, and so getting him it's just like taking a wide receiver 1, right? The numbers he puts up, and he's such a mismatch to any defense that I absolutely love taking him. Now, the guy that I actually don't like is taking George Kittle in the second. I just think he's going to not take a step back, but he's not going to be the main focal point of this offense anymore. He's still going to get his, don't get me wrong, but he is not going to have the same target upside as Darren Waller or Travis Kelce because they have Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel. They have all these different weapons there in San Francisco, and I think he probably should project him probably 1.5 targets less per game than a Darren Waller. So I like George Kittle a lot, but I don't think I would take him in the second round. I definitely wouldn't take him ahead of Darren Waller, and I think he probably should be a guy that's going maybe 3rd round. But because of his name, people are going to take him a little bit higher. I just value Travis Kelce and Darren Waller. George Kittle does not have 140 target upside like these two do. And that's my only issue with. I still love George. George Kittle's still a beast, but I think with all these other added weapons that they have here, I just don't think that he has that same sort of target ceiling.
I just went back to look at Fantasy Pros to see where he finished in comparison to wide receivers. And Kev, you make a really good point because he is right there with Justin Jefferson and Calvin Ridley. He's sandwiched right in between them for fantasy points on the season. All three of those individuals played all 16 games. So you're talking about Justin Jefferson going 2 picks later than him. That's kind of right where you'd get that fantasy point per value, regardless of position.
Robby, since you brought up the Eckler pick, Kev, I know you have Eckler in your top 10. He actually goes as RB10 here after the first 8 picks. Like I said, we're running back. Akers was RB9, and then Eckler was 10. Is this the area that you would be taking him, since it's kind of where you have him ranked, or would you be taking some of these receivers ahead of him?
I think the way this turned out, I definitely would have taken Nick Chubb. Had I been sitting there, I would have taken Nick Chubb over Austin Eckler. But all things considered, I think that this is still really. I think it's fine taking him where you're getting him here, especially in PPR formats. We know how much he's going to be involved in the passing game here. He's not going to be the guy that's going to get 20 touches a game. It's just not his game. It's not going to happen. He's going to be utilized more as a pass catcher than he is as a guy between the tackles. But in this offense with Justin Herbert, they didn't really change anything with this offense other than bringing in, a much better offensive line with pairing that some and with adding Jared Cook, and Hunter Henry's gone. Other than that, it's really the same team, and they've also drafted Josh Palmer. So I don't think anything's changed. I think 100 targets is definitely in the range of outcomes for him in this offense with Justin Herbert. And so if you can get a guy like that in a PPR format in an offense that's ascending, I have no problem with that. I would definitely want, like I said, Nick Chubb ahead of him, and then I would probably have a decision to make between Joe Mixon and Austin Eckler.
So moving on to the third round, 301, went our first quarterback with Patrick Mahomes, Ridley at 302, Clyde Edwards-Helaire at 303, Najee Harris, first rookie coming off the board at 304. Then it went Dobbins, Michael Thomas. Kev, you took Miles Sanders. Robby, you went David Montgomery. Josh Jacobs, I took A-Rob at 310, and then Keenan Allen and Julio Jones to round out the third. Like I mentioned last round, you guys both went 3 running backs to start yours off. Was this, Kev, obviously with Miles falling to middle of the third, I think that's really good value for him there. Montgomery going to 308, not going to give you any grief for that, Robby. This is a David Montgomery friendly podcast. But again, same question as the past 2 rounds. Anyone else you were considering there? Did you debate on taking somebody like A-Rob, who was who kind of fell into my lap there at 310? Just your general thoughts on your third round picks and anything else that stood out to you during this round.
I think for me, whenever it came to Miles Sanders, I kind of looked at wide receiver, but I felt like with only 9 wide receivers drafted to this point, I felt really good about, let's take this last running back. I will lock up my running backs for a while. I don't have to worry about the position, and I can kind of start hammering wide receiver the rest of the way. And so that's kind of what I did. I felt like Miles Sanders in the third round, again, is solid value. If this is where he's going to be going, even when we get to August, I'm going to be really excited about that, because I think people are undervaluing him and pretending like he is going to just be a complete bust. And I think that's a mistake. I think he's still the lead back in this offense. I still think he commands 60% of the touches. I am not worried about him whatsoever. And if I'm going to be able to get him, because pretty much once you get past Miles Sanders, all that was left was David Montgomery, Josh Jacobs, and then you kind of have a tier fall a little bit on some of the running backs that went after him. There's a couple more that I feel like that definitely should have been higher than what they went. But overall, I felt like he was kind of the last real running back that I could, the last couple running backs that were there that I could get. I felt really good about I feel good still about his pass catching upside as well. And I just couldn't feel the same way about David Montgomery, because I do think Tariq Cohen is going to eat into his pass catching work. And then Josh Jacobs, John Gruden doing John Gruden things. So with the start of Aaron Jones, Joe Mixon, and Miles Sanders, I feel like I couldn't really start much better than that.
And Robby, was it kind of similar feelings for you with that fall off at running back there with going Monty?
Yeah, I think in last year's drafts, you kind of saw running backs dry up a little bit earlier than this year. I feel like with the influx of talent from the 2020 class and now the 2021 class, even this third round of running backs, you feel pretty safe. And if they're your running back 3, you feel really great getting Sanders as your RB3. I got David Montgomery. We had a couple of other individuals get Najee and J.K. Dobbins as their running backs 3. So I think there was a lot of good talent where in previous years you might have seen Melvin Gordon, David Johnson, guys that maybe ended up doing okay, but you were kind of shaky on that. So I do think running back's a little bit deeper than last year, just based on the influx of talent. And yeah, same reasonings with Kev there. I can lock up David Montgomery, and I have my top 3 backs. I don't have to address this position for 3 or 4 rounds. Montgomery was running back 4 last year. Sure, Trey Cohen comes back in, probably takes a little bit of a hit on his targets, but they do a little bit to the line for once. They draft Tevin Jenkins. They haven't really addressed their offensive line in a long time, so I really hope that that'll do a little bit. And with Matt Nagy's back against the wall, they bring in Justin Fields. Let's see what this offense can do with a Dalton Fields led offense. So yeah, I'm excited about those 3 running backs. I would definitely stack them up against anybody's top 3 running backs for sure.
Yeah, the running back cliff comes at you very quickly here. That's why I just ended up going with A-Rob at 310, because I was looking at that and I was like, who am I really going to take here that I'm going to feel great about? So my draft obviously started off with A.J. Brown, Stephon Diggs, and Allen Robinson, which, I mean, I feel like I have 3 guys who could legitimately finish in the top 6 in terms of wide receiver finishes. But man, if you don't start hitting on some of these running backs, it can get, like at this point of the draft, we have 2 rounds left. I only have 4 running backs on my team, just because every time it came back around to me, I was just like, I'm reaching on all these guys. Like the thirst is real. So that is kind of something that I have now realized after doing this first mock. Like, obviously I knew running backs are going to go hot and heavy in a best ball draft with best ball 10s right now, and it's definitely going the same way. But until you get in one of these and you put yourself in that, in that predicament, like I said, with going Diggs at 203 over Chubb, like if that would have been an actual draft, Chubb would have been my either first or second round pick. But having, going these top 3 receivers was, I did not feel great about my running backs. And we'll get to some of those guys here in a minute. But the other pick that stood out to me, Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Miles Sanders, I think, are great values in the 3rd. I don't know if I can take J.K. Dobbins at 305 where Christian took him. I just think that there are too many questions in terms of his, his target volume. How involved is Gus going to be? What is this offense going to look like? Apparently, now that, the quote came out the other day that, we're going to see things we've never seen from this offense. So whatever that means, maybe more than 500 pass attempts for Lamar Jackson. But then the other one, Michael Thomas, falling all the way down to 306. I mean, last year he was probably the first wide receiver taken off in a lot of drafts, kind of go in the middle of the 1st, mid to end of the 1st, going at 306 here. Kev, was that somebody that you were kind of eyeing up if he would have fallen to you? And then I guess just general thoughts that he just seems to be one of these guys who has just taken an absolute dive, especially compared to where his value was last year.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's that bad though, because I mean, it looks in the round, but I mean, he went wide receiver 9 off the board. So I mean, that's not as bad as what I think. Where I think he could have went lower. I think I could see people taking Allen Robinson ahead of him, Keenan Allen, probably not Julio Jones, but I mean, Amari Cooper, possibly Terry McLaurin. Like I think he probably goes in typical drafts. I think he probably goes later than that, just because I don't think people feel as confident with him. With all the injuries that he suffered last year. I still would have taken Miles Sanders, just like I said. I felt like I had to get. I really wanted to get my 3rd running back here because I felt like I could, really hammer wide receiver afterwards. And so, but with Michael Thomas, I don't hate going there. I would probably prefer taking a couple of these other guys like Allen Robinson and Keenan Allen ahead of him. But it's kind of like we talked about. I do think also that he's going to end up being a guy that I think could end up being somewhat of a decent value, because I still think that he's going to see a lot of targets here in this offense. I do 100% believe Jameis Winston is going to be the starting quarterback here in this offense. We'll still see Taysom mix in. I don't hate that where he's going, but I just feel like he's probably going to go going later. I feel like you're probably going to end up seeing him probably go in the 4th, and which is a little different to see somebody like that go that late. But I don't really hate it.
Yeah, not to repeat everything Kev just said, but yeah, I think you could have taken him even later than this, to be honest with you. The 3 guys that Kev mentioned, I'd rather have them over Michael Thomas. I think it's going to be interesting because I agree that Winston's going to be the starter, but Cody, I think it was you that made the point that Breeze's accuracy was a big reason why Michael Thomas gets a lot of those receptions, right? And if you have a little bit less of an accurate quarterback, and by a little bit, maybe a lot of it here and there, there's probably going to be an efficiency decrease with Michael Thomas. Sure, he might be the only show in town, him and Kamara, but I would definitely have A-Rob over him. I would have Keenan Allen over him. I'd have Julio Jones over him. So I think he could have gone a little bit later. And does that make him a value? Absolutely, because I think you have a drop off after him then maybe. I'd probably even I'd take Terry McLaurin over him as well. Sure, he might be a value because where he was at last year, but the situation is so different from last year. So we have to take where he was going last year as the wide receiver one-ish out of our minds because it's a completely different situation now. So I think he went a little bit early if you're asking me.
All right, so the last round that I will read off here, pick for pick, like I said, if you were listening to us on podcast form, please head over to our YouTube channel and make sure you're subscribed. You can see the full draft board up on the screen as you're following along. But 401 was Amari Cooper. Then I went Terry McLaurin. My first running back I took at 403, and that was Sir Chris Carson. Kyler Murray, Robby coming in early with the quarterback and taking Josh Allen as QB3. Kev taking his first wide receiver at DJ Moore, Chris Godwin, Bobby Trees, CeeDee Lamb, Mike Evans, Kareem Hunt at 411. Like I said, that running back cliff comes at you real fast. And then Deontay Johnson rounding things out here at 412. Obviously, with me at 403, had to get a running back. Taking Chris Carson, I feel pretty I guess I feel as comfortable and as confident with Chris Carson as a fourth round running back as one can. He should be getting the volume. I'm not worried about anybody else in that backfield. As long as he can stay healthy, he's going to handle the wild majority of those touches. And then Robby, you going early with Josh Allen here at 405. My question is why?
I just really like Josh Allen's upside, and I used to kind of be the guy that waits on quarterback for forever, but I've noticed that a lot of times when I have a championship team or a team that's really competing, I have one of those top quarterbacks. I'm not playing the waiver wire with quarterbacks. I'm not messing around with who to start, what's the better matchup. I have a guy that's probably a top 3, top 4 quarterback, and I think with Josh Allen's rushing floor, that's exactly what I have with Josh Allen.
Kev, with you taking your first wide receiver, DJ Moore, 406, I know you like him in this Carolina Panthers offense this year. Were there any other receivers that you were mulling around, or was it pretty easily DJ Moore for you there?
Really, it came down to DJ Moore, CeeDee Lamb, and Deontay. I kind of thought about in my head when I was looking at it, I was like, maybe I could run a little stack here, maybe get Dak, which I obviously got Dak the next round. But with DJ Moore, like I've said, I think this offense has taken another step forward this year. It was a pretty easy decision for me. He's a borderline top 12 wide receiver. So getting him in the 4th round, I think that's the luxury you can take with taking wide receivers. I felt like this round was pretty straightforward. The only one that really made me scratch my head was the Kareem Hunt pick. There's no way I could have taken Kareem Hunt with Myles Gaskin still on the board, or even Mike Davis for that matter, or Chase Edmonds. I feel like all those guys just have a higher ceiling than what Kareem Hunt does in this offense. Like Kareem Hunt is going to be, I don't know if you're ever going to know, or feel great about starting him, unless another injury happens to, Nick Chubb. So if that doesn't happen, like Kareem Hunt, he's going to have weeks for sure where he's going to be usable, but predicting that and that being your number 2 running back, I just can't do it. Like Myles Gaskin is just continually being slept on. I think he's a guy that's going to move up a little bit higher, but the Dolphins clearly value him. And, we saw what he was able to do last year. They didn't really add anybody that's really going to affect him. They added Malcolm Brown over the offseason, but not somebody that's going to come in and take his job from him. So I like Myles Gaskin a lot. And if you can get him in the 5th round, I am about that life.
Kev, something that you typically do not do that you did for this mock is you did go quarterback early. You took one in the first 5 rounds. You ended up getting Dak Prescott at 507. Travis Etienne going right before that at 506. But Kev, quarterback at 507. Did you shower afterward? Did you puke on yourself? Walk me through that very tough decision it must have been to take an early quarterback like that.
It was super
best
easy
pick.
for me.
That was his best pick yet.
Like so for me, whenever I was on the clock and I was looking to see who was available, Cooper Kupp was still there, because I had just taken DJ Moore. Adam Thielen, Claypool, like the wide receivers that were on the board. Like I wasn't like, man, I have to have this guy. I'm taking him. And I was good at running back. There was no tight end there that I was going to take. And so I was like, you know what? Like I'm going to take my number 2 quarterback, the guy that I think that has the number 1 quarterback upside here in Dak Prescott in the 5th round. And I'm going there because I love Dak this year. I love this offense. And so like, I think this is a situation where I usually am a guy who is, let's just draft a quarterback late. But I think in certain situations where, depending on how your team falls, like I think it's not a bad idea to take one. Like I'm not taking Pat Mahomes in the 3rd round. Like that's never going to happen for me. But like if somebody like Dak, who you're really high on, falls a little bit further than what you would expect him to go, take him. Don't just pass on because, well, I can't take a quarterback early. Like I think you have to read the board a little bit. And for me, the way that my team had come out, like I felt like this was a good opportunity to take a quarterback. Had he already gone, I would not have went quarterback. I would have probably went with someone else. Maybe I would have considered Lamar Jackson, but like you said, like the quarterbacks that I really have started to covet more than anything are the guys that have that rushing upside to help their floor. And a lot of those guys are going early. Like you don't have a lot of options to take those guys late because we're pushing them up so far. And so it's tough to really be able to get your hands on them. So if a guy like Dak falls to me, I'm going to take him and I'm not going to feel bad about it just because of the way my team turned out. Like after that, I was able to get Cortland Sutton, which I love. And then, Curtis Samuel, Darnell Mooney, Paris Campbell, Elijah Moore, Terrace Marshall. Like I just went straight upside from that point on with my wide receivers. And also I think it's something to be consider is the way the lineup constructions are going to work with this league or this mock, because with this league, we only start 2 wide receivers and there's 2 flexes. So I didn't feel the need to have to, stack up wide receivers. I felt like when I was looking at this and the way, the lineup construction was to break down, I didn't need a ton of early round wide receivers because I don't have to start all these guys, because with my 3 running backs, I can start my 2 running backs with 1 flex. So at that point, I have 1 flex available to me. And with all these wide receivers, I'm able to kind of do what I want to do here. I'm not forced into starting 3 wide receivers. So, I feel pretty strong about the way this team turned out with Dak Prescott. So I'm happy with that. And again, that's just another thing whenever you're drafting that you should be paying attention to is, your lineup construction and, the spots that you have in your league, because every league is different. Some leagues that run 3 wide receivers, 3 wide receivers, 2 flexes. You can run, different things. So different strategies can work here. So I think those are all things that you should be paying attention to whenever you're drafting. One thing that I did want to talk about here as well in regard with your team, Cody, is I felt like that with a team that waited on running back, I actually liked the way that your team planned out. Like,
Yep.
I know now, like a couple of years ago, 0 RB was all the rage, right? And your team isn't like a typical 0 RB team, but 0 RB was all the rage. And then, we had a couple rough years, and now it's like people, if you even try to bring up 0 RB, people are like, oh, you're so stupid. You have to take running backs early. I think actually this year, the way that I've been looking at some of these, the best ball drafts that I've done, the mocks and stuff like that I've seen in ADP, the way it's going to shake out, I think this is actually a good year to do 0 RB if it were to fall to you that way. Like if it comes naturally, like I'm not trying to force that strategy, but if it's on the board, like I think you can do it, like for sure, because getting Chris Carson could be a top 10 running back this year, like in the Seattle offense. He just needs to stay healthy. Mike Davis, like. We can say whatever we want, how dumb if we think that them making Mike Davis their lead running back is, but clearly they love the guy. They have done nothing to try to change it. But, we're going to be like, oh, it's stupid. What are you guys doing? But he's clearly going to be the lead back here. We know he can handle pass catching work as well. It's going to be an upgrade over Todd Gurley last year. And as much as I hated Todd Gurley last year, I think what he have like 8 or 9 touchdowns through like the first 8 or 9 weeks of the season last year. So this offense is still going to be dynamic. They're going to be on the field a lot. He's going to get a lot of opportunities. So getting Mike Davis at almost in the 6th round, is still pretty solid. And then you got Michael Carter, who we think that probably has a good chance of getting a large workload this year. Like I don't hate the way that turned out. So like I think you can go 0 RB this year. The problem with it a couple of years ago was so many people started doing it. And so like it took away all the value that you were getting at wide receiver because, wide receivers being pushed down so far. And so you were able to just kind of stack up these wide receivers where you could get AJ Brown, Stephon Diggs, now Robinson as your top 3 wide receivers. That's just set it and forget it. You don't even have to worry about your wide receivers. Running back, we're going to have some guys get hurt. We got all these, and really the way this rookie class landed with only a couple guys going early, like we're not going to get all these running backs moving up all these rookie running backs like we did last year with that rookie class, where some of these guys have an opportunity to break out later in the year, depending on how things go. And so I don't think this is a bad year to run zero RB if it falls that way, where I know you're going to hear a lot of people tell you it's ridiculous. You have to go running back early. You have to go, I know we went, me and, Robby went running back early with 3 straight running backs. But again, it was just kind of the way the board felt to me, the reason I went that way. But going the way you went, Cody, like I do not hate that team at all. Like the way it stand out and the running backs you have, I feel like you're going to feel pretty confident with the way that team turned out.
Just to add on to that, Cody, before you talk about the team a little bit, is I like that as well. But the one thing I might just tweak a bit is that after you took Chris Carson and Mike Davis, I might just continue to slam running back, right? I think you probably saw Tyler Boyd. You saw Bay pop up, and you're like, I can't let this opportunity pass me by. But I think if you have Chris Carson, Mike Davis, and you back it up with Leonard Fournette and maybe Javonte Williams in the next couple rounds, and you kind of get a core 4 right there where you can rotate and play matchups, I think that's how you go the quote-unquote zero RB, where you skip it the first 3 rounds and then you kind of hit the next 4-ish rounds. Because honestly, I don't know when you're going to start Tyler Boyd. I don't know. You're never going to start Robby Anderson probably. And so those are 2 swaps that I might make. But then I love the quarterback you got. Irv Smith at tight end has a lot of potential there. So I do like how your team turned out. Curious on your thoughts.
Like Kev was saying, I think it's if it falls that way to you, I don't think it's a bad way to go. It just feels like super fragile. Obviously, with the rate of running back injuries, with them getting injured more often than any other position for fantasy purposes, like if Carson or Mike Davis go down, like that team is gonna crumble pretty quickly. But like I don't necessarily hate it. Like it just feels like having Chris Carson and Mike Davis, plugged into my, my 2 starting running back spots, like just doesn't it doesn't make me feel all warm and fuzzy. But then as far as maybe taking Fournette over Tyler Boyd, I took Boyd at 6'3", and then Fournette went 6'04". With that particular situation, I just think we could be looking at an absolute headache in Tampa Bay, and that could be a hot hand kind of running back room there, because even though Fournette played well, Ronald Jones was injured and they were still trying to work him into that game plan until it was pretty clear that Fournette was their best option. They kind of just wrote it with him. So I don't think Ronald Jones is out of the picture. Then they bring in Giovanni Bernard. So I think that's just one that's just going to be a headache to try and project. And some of the guys who went after him, just for those who are listening on podcasts, James Robinson, 6'12", David Johnson at 7'02", Javonte did go at 7'07". I probably would have taken him had he fallen to me at 7'10" when I took Robby Anderson. James Conner, 801. I don't really think he's going to be a huge part of that offense. Raheem Mostert, 805. We've talked about this San Francisco running back situation a bunch of times. It just got to those points where it's just I feel like I'm going to be taking a running back just for the sake of taking one. And then luckily my savior, Michael Carter, fell to me at 9-10, and that was kind of just an automatic smash for multiple reasons. I think he's locked into the Jets' RB1 role for whatever that might end up being, whether that's 55% of the work, 60% of the touches, whatever it is. I think he steps into that running back room as the best running back that they have. So that one was a super easy pick for me to make. Like I said, just gets there. There are so many question marks after that. David Montgomery, Chris Carson, Mike Davis kind of area. You got Irv Smith at 10:03, so I like that spot. So it was kind of just the way that everything fell to me. Getting Aaron Rodgers at 8:03 felt like a pretty nice value for how early some of these other quarterbacks went. I feel like the only way that does not pay off is if he just doesn't play. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where I was feeling with the way that my team shook out there. So, Kev, obviously you walked us through your thoughts on your team. We'll start to wrap this up here a little bit. Robby, just give us your overall thoughts on your team and kind of the construction route that you went there, and then we'll start talking about some of our favorite picks and some of these late round guys.
Yeah, so we talked about my 3 early running backs, and obviously that kind of set me up for running back where I could focus on all the other positions. So was able to land Josh Allen. I like that. Now I'm set with a top 3-ish quarterback, hopefully. And then I kind of just went from there and tried to hammer wide receiver. And I thought there was actually a lot of guys still left. Maybe I waited 1 round too long with going with quarterback first. So maybe I switched that up and see if like Kev he had Dak fall to him the next round. That might be a little bit better. But I mean, Cooper Kupp with Matthew Stafford now instead of Jared Goff throwing 6 yards out, 6 yard slants to him. He hopefully can improve his ADOT back to what it was in Goff's previous years, gets back up from 3 touchdowns back closer to the 10 touchdowns he had in 2019. I think that's a really solid start. And then OBJ, we're getting such an injury discount with him from dynasty purposes. As a dynasty guy, I'm not all in on him, but for a redraft, I think OBJ is a insane value right here. He's one of my favorite picks in these later rounds. So after getting some of those guys, I just try to build more depth with Brandon Cooks, a guy that kind of is the only show left in town in Houston, and then a couple more running backs. Just trying to hit high upside guys. I mean, AJ Dillon there. If Aaron Jones goes out, I think that's a high upside pick. Jalen Reagor, I think he had a slow start with his injury and just kind of a lot of Carson Wentz not feeling himself in Philly. And then they had to switch to Jalen Hurts. But with a full offseason, I think that's a pick that could turn out to get a couple starts for me. And then one of my favorite ones, I'm very surprised that Kev didn't steal him right before me, was Mecole Hardman. This is probably going to be in one of my sleeper videos coming up that, they moved on from Sammy Watkins. And if you look at that depth chart, wide receiver 2 is locked and loaded for Mecole Hardman. And I just think he has an opportunity if Tyreek were to get injured or something like that he just has a lot of upside in that Chiefs offense. So that's one of my that was my 14th round pick, I believe. So talk about getting a lot of upside potential there.
Robby, you just absolutely told on yourself. You are not a company man. You have not been listening to the podcast, because this is something that I feel like I've heard Kev talk about 5, 6, 7 times before. Byron Pringle is a wide receiver 2. Mecole Hardman ain't a thing. Speaking of these 14th round picks, let's wrap it up on this note. Just Kev, Robby, let's rattle off just some final thoughts, maybe some of these late round guys that we like. I will start. One that, was definitely an oversight on my part. I think Rondale Moore, he did not get drafted until 13-11. Not sure how much higher his ADP will end up by the time that we reach August, but I thought that was a really nice pick there by Citrus Sucker Boy. I really like that one. Amon St. Brown is someone who I'm going to continue to pound and take at his ADP all the time. I got him at 1203. I just think you're looking at someone who has 110, 120-ish target upside, I think. And I think he is someone like Michael Carter who steps into that room as far as the receivers go in Detroit, and he is the best receiver they have, and the only one he's going to be contending with targets for is going to be TJ Hawkinson and DeAndre Swift. I honestly think. Any of these other later on guys that are sticking out to you, anyone that you're surprised with as far as maybe falling a little bit more than you were expecting? Kev, throw it to you first, and then Robby, you can wrap us up.
No, not really. I think that one, getting Elijah Moore in the 12th round, I was thrilled about. I think there's a real good chance that Jamison Crowder is not on this team whenever we get to training camp. I think that whether they can save a lot of money by cutting him, I could see them trading him. I don't think he's gonna be there. I think he is gonna end up being their slot wide receiver. And I just love Elijah Moore and his upside. I think he is one of the best wide receivers in this class, and I think that he can make an immediate impact day one. And then Terrace Marshall as well. I took him as well as just kind of another high upside guy in this Carolina offense. The one thing I'll say that stood out to me the most about these later rounds, and I know we're still early in the process, is I never, ever in my life understand why people take some of the players they take in these later rounds, like taking Tevin Coleman, taking Marlon Mack, taking guys like this that we know that are likely not going to have much upside, if any, right? I get it. 13th, 14th, 15th round in drafts typically are going to be guys you're probably going to end up dropping, right? Because they're just not going to work out. But I am shooting straight for that ceiling in these rounds, right? Because of the bust potential still there, because of the chances of all that. There is zero reason to take Tevin Coleman. There is zero reason to take guys like that aren't going to have any sort of impact likely all year, but even if they do, the ceiling is so low on them that they're not going to produce. And I think that people should just be drafting for straight upside, straight ceiling at that point. You're looking for that golden ticket, that lottery ticket. Leave these bums, these jags, these guys that are past their prime, they're just names at this point. Leave them out there. Do not draft them. It's a waste of your time, and it's just a waste of a pick. It's a waste of draft. It's a waste for your bench. Just don't do it.
For some positivity here, for Nate going Darren Waller in the second, I was really curious how his team would turn out. If you take tight end early, you're obviously passing on this premium position of either running back or wide receiver. And I think his team turned out really well. He got Saquon, Clyde, and Chase Edmonds, 3 backs that can catch the ball, get the 50, 60 targets. And I think that's what you're hoping for out of your running backs. And then he also got Mike Evans, Chase Claypool, Jerry Jeudy, and Michael Pittman for his wide receivers. So just wanted to do a little shout out to another team that was not my own. It's someone who I was curious on the strategy there for a bit, but it ended up turning out pretty good for him. I think he has a really solid team.
We appreciate you guys joining us. Like Kev said, drop some comments in the comment section. Let us know what you think of some of these teams, some of these picks. Make sure you're keeping everything locked in here. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you have not yet done that. Rate and review us on the podcast side as well. It would really mean a lot to us, and we'll talk to all of you guys very soon.